Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico Show. We are here still in quarantine, and prayers and thoughts to all of the folks that are dealing with this right now, especially on the front lines. And even though we don't have all the facts and all of the answers, we're just staying strong here and trying to keep it positive. And speaking of positive, I've got a guest with us today. If you guys already know the name from clicking on the link, this guy is just awesome. Happens to be family, believe it or not, with me. And our guest is a worship leader, songwriter, speaker, teacher living in the heart of North Carolina. And he has recently released his recorded single, Alive in Me. And this has already made its way on the internet, onto internet radio and across the oceans in all directions. Fantastic musician, great artist, great songwriter, great leader, and great man of faith. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Michael Pope, Michael Stewart Pope. We didn't even talk about how you want to be introduced, but we'll go with Michael Stewart Pope because that is your website name.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show, Jason. That's
Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, man.
I really am enjoying, as I said earlier before we hit record, I love the decor of the garage. It's great.
Well, I appreciate it, man. You know, maybe later on I'll give you a tour of the nastiness that's out there right now. It is turned into a workshop of many sorts, as well as a home gym, and it's a mess right now. Quarantine's got it all jacked up.
Are you like me? Do you write a lot of songs in the garage?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Yeah, when I started playing music my junior year of high school, so that was probably 2003, and I would practice in the bathroom.
Really?
Yes, because if I had to go in there and do my business, I wasn't going anywhere. So I would take the guitar and I would practice. That's how I got started.
Wow.
And so then when I started writing music, it was probably, I don't know, that was probably 2004, 2005 I started writing. I usually just ended up on the couch. Like I would be on the couch and a random phrase or something would come and then I would just drop it. I've actually never sat down and toiled over a verse or anything for hours upon hours.
Right.
I hit a line and then I'll come back to it maybe, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, 10 months, who knows? But I have a running Rolodex of just like ideas and phrases, and whenever it hits me, I'll run back through those and then try to work on stuff here and there. So, well, I've never written something in the garage.
Yeah, well, the only reason why I bring it up is for some reason I don't know. I just find myself writing a lot in the garage. I don't know why.
Well, you're alone. You get alone and there's nothing to do in your garage except in my place. It's different. I would get distracted by everything else I got going on out here.
Right.
I try. It's weird, man. Yeah. I think that people write where there are no distractions or where they can zone out. If you can find your place where you zone out and it's like your tunnel vision, I think that's probably the best place to go.
For
and
sure.
That's not my garage.
Well, cool, man. I definitely want to get into creative process and all of that, even though you just alluded to some of it right there. I want to take a step back and get into your beginning stages as a creative. And back in your middle school bathroom days, if you want to talk a little bit more, even before that, you know, how music came about, what your background is. I know your story to a certain degree, but I'm actually curious to learn even more, besides just hanging out at family gatherings and everything.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I grew up, so I didn't grow up in the church. I would go to church with like family and stuff. And so my introduction to music was actually way back in the day. It used to be a radio station called 93.9.
Okay.
And used to have a couple of radio hosts on there named John Boy and Billy. And I would go to school. My dad would take me to school. And I remember just listening to this station growing up. and all they played was classic rock.
Yeah.
And so I was taking in Cream and like Foghat and, all these, I would imagine a lot of kids these days would not have any idea who these people are, but I was jamming out to those guys and, Blue Oyster Cult and AC/DC. I think my first record was AC/DC, Back in Black. I think that was my first. Yeah.
Great place to start.
Yeah, I think that was my first one. And so I got into music and stuff at a young age. And then my dad used to be in a band, and he had this old Eterna was the name. It was an Eterna guitar, just acoustic, sitting in the corner. And I was like, hey, Daddy, I want to learn how to play this. Can you show me how? And he would show me a couple of things. And before I even learned guitar chords, I learned how to play Freebird. I was like, so that was like the start, but I would get bored really, really quickly. And that process repeated itself probably 5 or 6 times before I actually picked up the guitar, learned a chord, and started really getting it. And that didn't happen until my junior year of high. And it was strange because there was no reason for me to pick it up. I just had this really strong desire to pick up my guitar the summer after my junior year. And I picked it up and I started teaching myself. I started learning a few things. My dad would show me a few chords, but I just started trying to pound it out and learn myself. And I didn't know at that time that it would take me to where I am now. I didn't know that there was a deeper spiritual meaning behind it.
Right.
Because it was completely against where I was going. I was going to be, this Olympic athlete. At least that's what I was dreaming of. And, going to be a meteorologist and all this other stuff. And music was not, I just wasn't that wasn't in the picture for me. I wasn't drawing that. And
when did the shift happen? Was there an event per se that really fused that in for you?
No, I don't think it was an event. I don't know.
That's quite a shift.
Yeah, it was a big shift. I think the whole meteorology thing left out when in freshman year. That's when I like to tell people that I met Jesus. Like that's when I really started to kind of press into this whole faith thing and who Jesus was. And so I was involved in a student ministry group, and I was like, well, I'm going to be a youth pastor. Those guys don't look like they do anything. They come to the school, they hang out with you, this kind of thing. So I was like, I'm going to do that. And it changed. Like I said, when I was an athlete in high school, I had this experience where I kind of made a deal with God, and I didn't keep my end of the deal. And I ended up losing this thing that had really become kind of a part of me, significant, like almost idol. Like I'm worshiping at my skill set here and where I want to go with it. And so when I gave that up, it was the summer after that I picked up this guitar. It was almost like God was kind of taking the things that were in the way of what he was wanting to give me.
Right.
Kind of like a father wants to give his kid a gift, but his kid keeps running to other stupid stuff. And so he's like, look, give me this. I want to give you this. And that was kind of the start. And it just kind of, I let it grow just naturally to what it was going to be. I didn't want to try to force anything. I just kind of let it grow, let it be what it is.
Your college experience, walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I didn't have the normal college experience. So my senior year, I got into a band. We were called Unbroken Promises. Shout out to Travis Blake and Sean Blake and Lauren Martin and Scotty Richardson, the old band manager. Shout out to those guys. But we got together, and so I was in this band, and I was the front man. I didn't even play guitar. I was just the lead singer. And when that started kind of going in, I I didn't do well on my SATs because I didn't take the time to prepare for them. And so there was a Christian school over in Wake Forest, Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. And I was like, well, they
Yeah,
have a
I actually, they were trying to recruit me for. Yeah, I toured there way back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they have a college there, and I was like, well, this is a no brainer. I'll go here, and I can still be in the band.
Right.
I could go, and so they ended up accepting me, and so I didn't really have the normal college life. It was just rough, man. God had me on a journey for sure, and I got scared 3 semesters in because I was taking some music classes like music theory and things like that, and they're a self-taught musician. I have no idea what they're talking about, and to top it off, my teacher wasn't that lively, so it was really boring for me, and I got really scared, so I left.
Right.
And I picked up some stuff at Durham Tech, and then eventually went back to finish out and got a music minor. I left voice major and went to music minor so that I could get out sooner, because I'd already been doing the college thing for 8 years, and I'm not a doctor. So I was like, I'm done. I need to get out of this.
Don't worry. It took me 5.5 or 6 years to get my business degree, and it was all online, man. It was all unconventional. But now, with who knows when students are going to be back on campus,
right?
So it's going to take over all the unconventional ways for school.
You were ahead of the curve, man. You got the technology thing on lock. Yeah. So, but I will say this: I had opportunities. That was really cool. I had a lot of opportunities in that first few years to lead worship for like student camps or student like weekend things and like coffee houses at the school. And so I really got to kind of press in and get really creative. And one of the things that I used to do was make songs up on the spot for people. So
Wow.
I would just try it. And I would ask people, give me what's one place that you wish you could go. What's your favorite food? Ask another person what their favorite food was. And then ask another person, like, tell me like give me your favorite color or a car or whatever. And I would just try to push those bounds. And then right on the spot, I would try to craft a song with those elements in it, and not just craft it like you throw it in there, but that there's actually a storyline.
Right.
And so a lot of people got really pumped up about those. They enjoyed those a lot. And it really pushed my wordsmithing. It really kind of started escalating that. So musically, I think college-wise, that's kind of where my college ended up taking me.
So after that period of time, what was the transition like into ministry, essentially?
Yeah. So I graduated in the fall of 2011. That was when I was slated to graduate. And when I finished up my final class that summer, I think it was like July or August of 2011, I started putting in resumes to like different churches and stuff. And that was the same year that I was getting married to my wife, Jessica. And so we ended up relocating to Reedsville, little small town about 20 miles north of Greensboro. And I got on staff at a church there as a student pastor and like family minister, and started helping with music. But it was one of those churches that was kind of steeped in some tradition, and they weren't as open to some of the things that I was bringing as far as music is concerned. And so I ended up stepping back from that for a little bit. All the meanwhile, though, I was playing music at like little bars and restaurants or country clubs if they let me come, and I was doing a bunch of covers and stuff. And so I had started doing that. And so music has kind of been there ever since I picked up the guitar. I've always had some sort of outlet for it. And so I got into that whole ministry thing, and then kind of ran from the worship leader thing, but recently have come back to it. I've always been the music guy wherever I went, and I saw that as kind of a crutch. People, if you go to a church or somewhere and they don't have a music guy or a musician, and they find out you play something, it's like, you just become that. And that really frustrated me for a while. And I think that I started believing some lies that was all I was good for, and forgetting that God is the one who gave it to me in the first place, because he had a vision for me and how to use it.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to recircle that and kind of take it back and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And yet the whole time God's like, yeah, but man, you could be so much more than what you're trying to do with it. And so that's kind of where that transition ministry has been. So here recently now, I've just kind of been doing the whole just lead music whenever opportunity comes up. I try not to shy away from it now. I kind of put that lie away. Like, so I'm okay with being a music guy. You want me to lead? Absolutely. Let's do it. Let me jump in there and we'll do it. And so,
Right.
I don't know if that answers the question or.
No, sure. Yeah. I think, and this kind of is going to transition into, I think some really good discussion. I'd love to get your opinion, and this whole part of the conversation can get really controversial really quickly. So it's you go as far as you want or as little as you want with it. But I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago with my good friend Edwin Mitchell. Shout out to Big E, a really talented guy, pastor and incredible music producer. But he we were on this like 3-hour panel, and he had a couple of pastors on. I was like the token music guy, like, faith-based guy, believer, but really kind of more in the secular world music wise, and like doing that. So he wanted my perspective on things, and we got into great conversation for a long time on his platform about just the church and music and the effect that COVID's having on churches. And, let me put it this way, and I want to get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
And I think this will somehow come together as a as relevant to what you just said. These are unprecedented times, and it's really going to change the body of Christ in the sense of like, look, here's what's going on. Church no longer exists as a building. So what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for the individual? And we got into crazy dialogue about it, but I was just curious to hear from you, what your thoughts are moving forward. I was gonna bring this up later, but now that we're kind of like in that part of the conversation, we could talk about it now if you like.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. And so what's interesting is here recently, Jessica and I felt very strongly that the Lord was asking us to step away from the church we've been involved with for the past 4 years.
Interesting.
I've been leading worship there and whatnot. And then randomly, our second daughter was born in January, and the church leaders chose to give Jessica and I 4 weeks off
Maternity.
from any responsibility, just to adjust to life with 2 kids now, and just to take a rest. And I had a leaders meeting with the pastor, the lead pastor and elder, and I just said, hey man, this was 2 weeks in, and I said, hey man, I just want to thank you for giving me like just to breathe, man. I really appreciate it. And I said, it's just been so refreshing. And he was like, well, how so? I was like, well, I don't have any sort of pressure. There's no responsibility. Like there's nothing on me. I'm just able just to be like, I can just zip, and little did I know that, I'll circle back around to that. So later that week, we had a church member bring us a meal. And when she came, we asked, hey, how was church on Sunday? And she was like, oh, it was good. And then she just kind of paused and looked at me, and she was like, but we missed Mike. I mean, it was weird not having Mike up there. And when she said that, man, my heart sank like 50-pound stone in water, just straight to the bottom. And it was like I heard Holy Spirit just speaking in my mind, like, don't go back. don't go back. And I was like, don't go back. I don't understand. And I was completely rude. I shut down. That's what happens when things surprise me sometimes. And I shut down. And at the end, Jess was like, Michael, that was rude, man. Like, what's going on? And I told her, and she was like, well, I'm kind of feeling the same thing. I just don't know if the timing is now. And I just grew so convinced that the timing is now. Like this, the Lord is telling us that we're supposed to.
It's hard when you got that conviction about something. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. But the cool thing is that Holy Spirit brought it back. Jess spent the next 2 or 3 days reading her journals and things like that. And she came back to me about 3 days later or 4 days later. She said, you're right. She said, he's been preparing us for this for 2 years and I just missed it. Here are the dreams. Here are words that were spoken and things like that. And she was connecting all these puzzles. And so then we said, okay, God, if we're supposed to leave, what time are we supposed to leave? Like when? And we both heard specific times, like specific. And when you map that out on the calendar, we ended up leaving the last Sunday in March. But if you map out when we were supposed to leave, according to what we believed we heard the Lord say, it was March 15th. And March 15th was the last Sunday that our church met together before this whole COVID-19, like social distance and everybody stay home kind of thing, which is very unique. So bringing that into the conversation, at that same time that I knew we were supposed to be stepping out and leaving, God was birthing some new ideas and thoughts in me. And years ago, I wanted to go do a tour that I called the Return to the Father tour. And the whole idea was going to go to churches and host worship nights. Just call them up. So you don't even have to pay me, but I want to come to your church and I just want to host a free worship night.
That's cool.
Just have people come. Well, at that time, it was real. I think looking back, it was real selfish motivated. I like travel and it was more about me. Hey, look at what I'm doing. But this time around, during this time that we know we're supposed to step out of this church, this whole idea starts coming back to me, but it comes back to me in a different way. And I kept hearing the phrase house of worship, house of worship. And so I'm in the process now, I guess, of praying through what that means. Because if you go look at Acts 2, after Pentecost happens and like the believers are gathered in Jerusalem and they're trying to spread the message of Jesus, like they're trying to share the good news that like we have access to God now, and life. They were going to synagogue, like they're going to these large places where everybody can gather, but at the same time, they're gathering in homes, like they're going to their neighbors and breaking bread together. And so the Lord just kind of brought this to mind. And Jesus at one point, when people were turning the church into a place of business and profiting from it, he said, you've turned my Father's house into a den of robbers, when it's meant to be a house of prayer. That's basically what he was saying. And I think that's where house of worship came, because I think that what's happening is God is reawakening and Holy Spirit is reawakening people to New Testament church that, as you said earlier, it's not about a building, it's about a gathering. And so where people live, where they work, and where they play can become houses of worship. It's about where you dwell. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to begin pressing this idea, even as myself. I'm not a pastor. I'm not on staff at a church, but I want people to begin turning their living rooms into a place where they host the presence of God. Like I want people to turn their bedroom into a place or the grocery store, whatever it is. It's just carrying it with you as you go, but make this the dwelling place of God. A.W. Tozer has a really good book called Man, the Dwelling Place of God. And he talks about how the Holy Spirit is in us and how he lives in us now. And like we are the crown of God's glory. It's like we are the ones who are made in his image. And so what I see for the church is I think it's going to be a reawakening. I think that there are people who are going to start kind of seeing through Well, I think a couple of things are going to happen. I think people who have been going to church and gotten into the routine but never really bought into Jesus, they just think that it's a good thing. I think they're going to stop going. I think that's probably going to happen just because they get used to not having to get up and go. So I think they're just going to stop.
Right.
Then I think that what's going to happen is it's going to force a lot of other staff members and churches to reevaluate how they do things, because I think people want authenticity. And I used to tell all the students, and really anytime I get a chance to teach, or if I get asked to lead discussions or whatever, I tell people all the time, what you use to attract people is what you have to use to keep them. And so if you're feeding them this and that's what brought them there, as soon as you take that away, they're lost, like they're gone.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think people are going to reevaluate. I think churches are going to reevaluate how they do stage designs. I think that they're going to reevaluate song selection. I think
Right.
they're going to reevaluate a whole lot of different things. And none of those are bad things. So I don't want it to sound like, hey, if you got a fog machine, you're bad. Like that's not that's not what I'm saying. But I think ultimately Holy Spirit's just opening eyes to people to get back to what really matters. When he says, I'm after your heart, I'm after your affection, I'm not after your new moon festivals, like he says in Isaiah. I'm tired of your songs, I'm tired of your lights, I'm tired of whatever. I just need your heart. And once your heart gets right, the things that flow out of that and whatever you use outside of that, that's what makes those things effective. But it has to start with a person's heart.
Yeah, and it's such a daily walk.
Yeah.
It never ends.
Yeah, I don't have anything against those things. Like I've played in lights, I've played all of those things, but I think that when people miss out on the heart and it becomes more about the production than the position, put it that way, the position of the heart turns into production, then that's when it fails. But when the position of the heart is right, whatever comes out of that, I think receives a blessing. Like I think it receives, just favor. Like God looks on that and is like, man, I see what you guys are doing. I appreciate that because you're doing it for me. You're not doing it for people.
It's always been, yeah. And it's always been like that whole like tightrope walk between like commerce, business, like running a church as a business, and the spiritual, literally the spiritual nature of it. Man, like it's just, that's one thing personally that's kept me away from, like, I just tip my hat off to you because I don't know how you do it. I like if I was in a leadership position at a church, I'd probably have a breakdown. You know what I, like I'm just being real. Like I don't know how these churches do it. I really don't know.
Man, it's a lot of patience, I think. But I love, Paul said, one of my favorite passages of scripture is found in Philippians when Paul tells this church, he says, hey, look, the thing that I really want for you is that you have the mind of Jesus, like that you think like he does, because he didn't consider equality with God something to strive after, but he just humbled himself.
Right.
He humbled himself to the point of death, even death on a cross. And then he even went on to say, consider others more important than yourself. And I think that any person who steps into a position of leadership has to consider others more than he considers himself. How is this going to affect the people I'm leading more than how much does it affect me? And I think that that's one reason that a lot of these pastors can do it. And it might be one of the reasons a lot of pastors fail. I don't know. But that's one of the things that I try to strive after is like, okay, how can I serve this person more than myself? Because in doing that, it demonstrates a humility, but I think it also demonstrates a love. And that's another thing people are after. They want to feel loved. They want to know that they're loved. And love is action. It's not just emotion.
Yeah. And I think, and this came to mind, I think in this season, especially, and I mean, this is true regardless, but ministry is anywhere. And that's that's probably what I was trying to say earlier. And maybe that's kind of what we're talking about on the same thread of consciousness, which is now it has to be.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this is it. We don't know exactly when this is going to open up again. Honestly, we don't know when we're going to be able to congregate again.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're absolutely right. Zoom stock is going through the roof because I know
Right.
people are using Zoom. They're using Facebook Live. They're using all these technological advances that honestly, that we've been blessed to have. God gave people brains, and they've given us
Yeah.
some pretty incredible things. And it's pushing the boundaries. It's giving people an opportunity to say, okay, this is how we've done things for so long. And it's almost like tradition is being broken.
Yes.
And I like that. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing.
Yeah. 100%. Let me get back to your music real quick,
Yeah.
because I know, speaking of uh traditions being broken, obviously your music champions the New Testament. Uh the new song Alive in Me, took a listen to it before we went on. I think it's great. Uh really like the album artwork too. I think that's awesome as well. I don't know who designed that. Came out very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. A buddy of mine named Daniel Grissom. Shout out to Daniel. He's on Instagram and Facebook.
I've heard of that name before.
So Daniel was the front man to Called to Arms. They were an old like hardcore band based out of Raleigh back in
Okay.
like the
The name
mid
sounds
2000s.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. That's how I got connected with him. Was actually I was probably the biggest Called to Arms band groupie that there was. Like I love that album, their album that they put out, and I just followed them around and just really got to hang out with them. They didn't kick me out, and we just developed a friendship. And so when I got the idea for this song, or really not when I got the idea, when Holy Spirit gave me the idea for this song, it was based out of Galatians, where it says that God has given us a spirit that cries out to him, Abba, Father, like this adoption spirit, that we now belong somewhere. I started writing it, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with this artwork? And I felt like he told me, call Daniel. And Daniel, he and his wife they live in Tennessee, and he and his wife have been fostering kids for like 2-3 years, and their whole MO is not foster to adopt, though their heart is after, like they would love to be parents, and adopt and just demonstrate that gospel. But one of the main things they do is they foster for restoration. And so,
Wow.
these moms or these dads, they're having issues, whether it's substance abuse issues or physical abuse or whatever. They're taking these kids in and they're giving them a safe place and loving on them. But then they have to turn right around after some time has passed, and they have to return these kids to their biological parents. And it's hard on them, but that was the whole goal, was this restoration, which is what Jesus did for us. And so I thought that's why he put that name. I found that out, and I was like, well, Daniel, man, I'd love for you to consider doing this artwork for me. And he was like, yeah, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, that's the thing. I have an idea, but I need you as an artist to do what God's gifted you to do.
Right.
You design it. I want you to be this person. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what the song means, but you craft it. And so you can notice the artwork is just a heart, and it's like a dead heart, but there's life that comes. It starts growing from this dead heart. That he takes the dead things and he makes life out of them. And
Literally.
so that's kind of that's the artwork story in short.
No, it's cool. It's available on your website, michaelstewartpope.com. And there's also a tab, worshipware, if you want to talk for a couple of minutes about that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you're an artist. People, they're not, in this day and age, it's hard to make money digitally alone. to support your work and your craft. It's just hard, especially with streaming services and all of that. I don't even need to get into all that. But one of the things that I tried to figure out and think, okay, well, what's a way that I can help support not just the things that I think God's asking me to do. Like I have so many other songs that I want to record, but I don't have the capital for it. Well, what's one way that I can help support this and at the same time still be creative? And so I basically just bought like this membership to Canva and started designing like t-shirts and stuff. And none of the t-shirts have my name on them. None of them have anything to do with me. It's really just stuff that I'm hoping will like promote people to ask questions. Like I hope it engages people in questions. Like one of the designs just says John 17:3. I'm hoping that people, if they wear that shirt, they'll be like, hey, what does John 17:3 mean? And it gives an opportunity for people to just engage in conversation about God, about ministry, about people. What does it mean to love my neighbor? What does it mean to love God? What does all this mean? And so I've just tried to take some of my favorite passages in scripture and some of the things that I feel like God even says and turn it into a shirt design that I think people would want to wear, or like a clothing design that people are like, yeah, that's not too cheesy. I could wear that,
Yeah.
So yeah. So, and all of that, I just found like a third party site, and like all of that, whatever is purchased off there, the funds just go straight back into what I'm trying to do. They're helping me record music or, whatever. Like it's anything that has to do with the ministry I'm trying to do. So everything just goes right back into it.
That's awesome, man. Well, we'll definitely have those links in the description box below or to the sides, depending on where people are watching or listening.
That'd be cool.
Real quick, I want to talk about best/worst gig experiences, if you have one of each. And you can keep names anonymous, but I sometimes throw this in there, and I thought you'd be a good candidate for it.
Oh man. Okay. Now let me ask you this. Because I was in a band. Do you want this just me specifically, like with worship leading and like those crazy church moments? Or are you talking about the band stuff too? Because I probably have
whatever is just more outrageous and provocative, which could happen in either. You and I both know anything can happen in the church. Anything can happen outside of church. So,
all right. So I'll honestly, if you'll let me, these are quick stories. Honestly, if you'll let me, I'll just do one from when I was in the rock band as well. I'll do one for each in the rock band, and then I'll do one each for worship leading.
Sure.
So the rock band, oh man, so fun.
This is why I always ask this.
Oh man, yeah. So our band name was again Unbroken Promises, and we were like this Christian rock band. And I would say it was probably more pure rock than it was anything. It wasn't like classic influence, even though we were influenced by classic rock. It didn't sound like classic rock. It just sounded like rock. And so we had this guy, his name was Scotty Richardson. And he, as I said before, he's a good friend of mine and basketball coach. And so he would write songs, and then Sean would come up with these sick riffs, just whatever. He would come up with that, and his brother was the drummer. So they could go down in their basement and just crack stuff out.
Right.
And then I would just throw the vocals on. And so we played more out of state than we did in our own state. We played.
That's a good formula, though.
Oh man, it was so
for
fun.
Building a fan base.
Yeah, it was fun, man. So Scotty ended up getting us a show down in New Bern, North Carolina, and it was for a county fair. And I would say, well, that might not even be I would say it was probably, this might be the best. This might be the best one. And I say best just because it was the most rock thing that we could have done. We get there, we set up, and we're playing for this county fair, and it's almost dead. There's like nobody there. It's in the middle of the day, And we're just throwing our stuff out. And out of nowhere, we've probably got 15, 20 minutes left in the set. And out of nowhere, somebody working with the fair and organizing it came up and told Scotty, it said, listen, you guys are too loud. We need y'all to turn down. Like, we need you to turn down. And nobody's there.
Right.
Like, there's just nobody there. And so Scotty told us that in just the middle of a quick break, just so I could get some water. And he was like, look, man, they said turn down. You guys are a little loud. And I just kind of looked at him, and he looked at me, and then we both kind of smiled. And Sean walked right over to the amp, and he turned his amp as loud as it could go. We we turned everything as loud as it could go, and we played one last song, and then we packed our stuff and left.
Yeah.
We didn't even finish the set. It was just like,
that's great.
That's probably one of the best.
That's great.
Oh man, that was one of the best. One of the worst things that I think I did was we tried to cover Nirvana. And that wasn't, I
don't know why I thought that was funny. It was just like the way you said it kind of cracked me up.
Well, yeah, because Nirvana, I mean, it's cool when you cover somebody, but you want to do it justice. And I don't think we did it justice. We did well, but we made it ours.
That's a hard vocal to especially because you sound like you're more baritone world like me. And that, Kurt's he's got a full vocal, but he's still a tenor at the end of the day. Like that's where he lives.
So we ended up playing a battle of the bands out in Cary, out in Bond Park, and
dude, I feel like I've actually done one of those.
You may have,
like 10 years ago or something. I played Bond Park. I couldn't even tell you for what reason, but anyway, continue.
Man, the place was filled, and they were filled because apparently there was a band there that had a really strong following because they were a high school band, and they had a lot of high school kids that just came out to see them, a lot of fans, whatever, real hardcore group. So we went on before them, and I remember the show was nose bombing. Like, people were not digging what we were putting out there. They just weren't, and it could be just the crowd. I don't know. At this point, it was just rough. And so we had no response. So I looked at Sean, and Sean just quickly, he just hit one of those blurbs like the Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit. It wasn't even, he wasn't even saying, Mike, let's do it. He was just trying to, get some crowd excitement. And so he played it, and I looked at him, and I was like, yeah, man, keep it going. And he looked at me, and this like look of fear came over his eyes. He was like, Mike, don't do this. And I was like, do it. And so we did it. And I remember us doing it, and I remember getting off stage and like going in the crowd or whatever. And when I went to climb back up, a kid came up behind me and like pushed me, like hard pushed me. And we get back on stage, and we continue with the rest of our set. But by the end of the set, when they saw that we continued playing, like I didn't stop and fight, we just kept playing. We, the whole deal, keep playing. You just, you do it. By the end.
Especially if it's a battle of the bands.
Yeah, we had won. Yeah, we had won the entire crowd by that time.
Right.
Actually, like people, they were like coming up to us after the show, like, you guys were great. And I think it was because of that moment, not because of how bad I stunk Nirvana, but how we responded. And it was like, look, we came here to have a show, and we're going to do the show.
Right.
So that was like band stuff. Now, worship leading is a different story. I'd say the worst one, I did music for a church over in Hillsboro one time, and they do live stream at 11 o'clock. The first service nailed the song, click track, everything, nailed it. Second service starts, and I missed my cue on the click to come in right at the beginning. It was Chris Tomlin's Angel Armies song, A God of Angel Armies. And so I missed the cue, and they're just kind of looking at me, and we're live, and I just go, all right, guys, let's just stop. And I said, I think God just wants us to know that sometimes we don't need click tracks. We don't need anything. Like, let's just get back to him and no production. Like, let's just forget the production. Let's start it again. And then I nailed it. And when I came off the stage, oh man, Tony, one of their guitarists, he came up to me, he goes, "Don't ever do that again." I'll never forget that. It was
I remember when was this and where was it? I think it was at Hope Chapel. Couldn't tell you when. It probably was 8-9 years ago. I was like 18, so wow. Yeah, about 8-9 years ago now. Just kind of scary to say. But I don't know. Like at the time, I was just so anti-click. I mean, I used it when I tracked recordings, at times. But the live thing, it was just like, it was just, I was like, dude, like, why do we? And I just remember saying something to the effect of, like click tracks are the work of Satan or blah, blah, blah. And somebody like just kept hammering that for years. And it was like this big, it was just this big, somebody may have made a meme out of it, like in early 2010, 2012, 2013. And it just stuck like with the entire youth group for years. Like Jason Damico says that click tracks are the work of the devil. It's just like, yeah, because in my opinion, they can be, because everybody's like so paranoid about the click. And it's like, oh, the click, like, are we on the click? And it's just, anyway, but that's me ranting about click tracks.
You missed that creative. Yeah, you feel like you missed that creative influence. Probably one of the best times just leading worship for me. One of the most just sweet times. This was years ago. I was asked to teach and do music for like a student weekend retreat kind of thing. And at the end of the teaching, there was going to be a response time just where kids could pray and do whatever. And so I got up to play and just lead a time of worship. That was it. And it only felt like, to me, and I'm sure you can relate to this, and any other musician, it really only felt like it was maybe 20 minutes. Like right. It felt like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, something like that. Not even, it just felt that way. And it was just a sweet time. And I finish, we wrap up, and I come down from the platform, and a kid walks up and goes, "Man, how do you do that?" I said, "Do what? Play? It just takes practice." He said, "No. How do you play for 2.5 hours and just not stop?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? 2.5 hours?" That was like 20 minutes. He held up his watch and he said, "Dude, you've been playing for 2.5 hours."
Yeah.
And nobody complained.
Yeah.
Like, no, he wasn't even complaining. It was just, how do you do that? And that was probably one of the most sweet times of ministry for me. Just a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are my stories. Thanks for the trip. Memory lane.
Well, as we kind of wrap up here, I got a fun little thing I do at the end, and then I've got a question that I ask everybody. But real quick, before we get into that, just, future plans for you. I know, and when I ask people that question, it's like, I have no idea, especially with what's going on now. But, yeah, you got new music coming out. What else? Is there anything else that you want to expand on real quick?
Yeah. Well, I'm becoming a gardener.
I think everybody is.
Quarantine. No. So yeah, I think that a couple of things coming down the line. Obviously, I've got new music that I want to record. So that's kind of the big thing. I'm hoping that the music that I feel like God's given me catches ears. Right. I want people to hear that. And then I did recently enter a songwriting contest with American Songwriters. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they have these like bi-monthly contests, and I just heard about it. And I submitted a song, not even a worship song. It's actually a country song that I wrote probably, I don't know, within the past month and a half to 2 months. It's a really cool tune, and it's just a story about Jessica and I's marriage from our first fight that I can remember, sleeping on the couch, And
Oh,
then,
that's a
yeah,
country song right there, man.
yeah, and then it moved into kind of my time here over the past couple of years when I was working at Moe's, and just the stress of life that brought, like when I was working there as a manager and being away from home for like 65, 70 hours a week, like that.
Man.
Yeah, it just, that was rough. But
Dude,
then
I love
turning
Moe's. Not to
so
digress,
good.
but oh,
So good, man. So good. Shout out to Dave Wilson and Beth. They are the ones who own the franchises in Durham,
yeah.
and the people I used to work for,
My
man. They're
Joey bag of donuts, baby. Ah.
Joey Bag. Joey Bag is so good.
Woo!
Um,
Anyway.
yeah. Yeah, man. It's all good. We always have time for that. So I submitted this song. So I'm hoping to see if there's anything that comes back from that. I honestly, man, Jason, the thing that I find most enjoyable isn't even the performance. Like, I enjoy playing and I enjoy leading, but man, I really enjoy writing.
Yeah.
I enjoy writing not just for myself, but helping other people
Yeah.
write, and asking questions. Does this say what you want it to say? Does it carry the impact that you want it to carry? Is there a
Right.
better way we can say it? Is there, I like that whole creative process with people. And so I don't know. I would like to do some more of that. I'd like to help other people kind of get their stuff out too, and what they want it to be.
So a little bit of like co-writing and maybe even, co-producing or production sounds like, to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah, just helping people, because I don't have the skill set, honestly, and this isn't me just because I'm on your show. Literally, I don't have your skill set. You are probably just. I could sit back and watch the stuff that you're doing, and I'm like, man, that guy has got so much ability and talent. Like, God's going to do some great things. No, seriously. But like, for example, you're doing things that I feel like I kind of missed out on. You know what I'm saying? Because you started this when you were young. You've been in production, acting, all those things. You do your own video editing. A lot of times you do your own recording and stuff. I don't have that skill set or the knowledge. So in my position, I have to depend on guys like you to say, hey, help me out here. And one of the things, though, that I feel like I have, I guess, that I'm fairly strong at, or I believe I am, is like the writing side. So it's like being able to help people craft what they want to say, and even potentially give them some melody and things like that. The
Right.
performance side I can help with. The production side, I don't have any real true skill in it. So I'm hoping to get some new music out. I'm hoping to get into some co-writing and helping people kind of achieve what they want to do. And then I'm hoping that worship wear kind of takes off too. I think it'd be really cool to see people wearing shirts that, that I made, and people have no idea that I made them. Like, they, because
Yeah.
it's not about me. I'm not trying to build my brand.
Right.
I'm just trying to put out what I believe,
And have
like,
it
I want
supplement the creative
just to
as a
help it
support.
supplement the ministry, man.
Nothing
Like,
wrong with that. Nothing wrong
yeah,
with that.
so I think that's coming down. I mean, being a daddy to two and trying to figure out life, what that looks like, leaving,
Yeah.
what's next. I don't know what God has next.
I don't know either, man.
Yeah, I just know he said leave, and we said okay.
That's all you can do.
So I'm trusting that if he called us from, he's calling us to, and he'll tell us when.
And I was going to say real quick, and hopefully this kind of, edifies you or confirms you to a certain degree with what you listen to. Listen, man, and I talked to you about this sometime last year. I planned and prepared for months to move everything to New York. This was back all throughout the fall of 2019 and January and February of 2020.
Yeah.
Was about to sign contracts with new acting management, and I was going to move my entire studio. Like, I wrote up a proposal. It was like a 5-page proposal with my home church up in upstate New York, and essentially got the rights to have 1,000 square feet of space on a separate building on church property, and have that as my entire studio space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I got all that cleared, but for just certain, I don't know what it was, man. Like there were just a couple of things that kind of fell through, and it had nothing to do with. I mean, it was just it, it just didn't work out, and literally it didn't work out, and I just didn't feel 100% committed to really make the move, and literally a week later, everything totally blew up with quarantine and COVID, and it was just like it would have been a total disaster for me to literally get stuck like an hour north of New York City. And the whole reason why I would have moved was because of the opportunities in New York City. Because I've been commuting for acting work and all of that, and gigging up in the East Coast as well with the band for 6-7 years on and off. And I was ready to really make the move now that I was out of business school and I graduated. So God's protection. I don't know how else I could say it to anybody, whether they're a believer or not. It's like I didn't see that coming. Who would have
Yeah.
known? So I think
Yeah.
it's the same thing in your guys' court as well. It's just shifting and preparing for the next chapter. And I mean, this in itself is a chapter, and it's just a lot of growing pains and a lot of. It's a very strange time for everybody.
Yeah.
But hopefully that kind of encourages you as well, because I was in the same boat, man. Like,
Yeah.
couldn't tell you why.
Yeah. It's this is one of those sweet times where I get to press in to what I truly believe. So it's like if you really believe that God directs, if you really believe that God speaks and cares about the details of your life, it's an opportunity for me to really have to lean in and press into that.
Yep.
Because I'm losing. We step out from under a financial umbrella with the church. They were supplementing our income a little bit, so we lose out on some of that. But it's like, okay,
Right.
God,
Right.
that fear comes in of like, oh man, what's going to happen? Can we pay our bills? Can we do this? Can we do that?
Right.
And then on the flip side, it's that whole reminder. It's like, did you not think that I knew when I, like when I
It's
asked you
so,
to
isn't it
leave?
so stupid, man? It's like
Yeah,
we just try to rationalize and get on a logical side of things with him, and he's like, listen, like you've got to, like, why? I don't know why I keep going to that by default, especially after all of the things that you and I come from the same background of supernatural occurrences and
yeah,
having the Holy Ghost as your friend and having access to that all the time. We still screw it up.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Drives me crazy, man.
Yeah, it really it's one of those seasons where I truly can understand Jesus's words where he says, "Don't
Yeah.
be anxious about anything."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, to "Don't worry about what you're going to be doing tomorrow because today has enough troubles of its own." And he's
Yeah.
like, "My Father will take care of you. He cares for birds, squirrels, and all these other guys. They don't ever worry about where their food's coming from. How much more important are we, people
Yeah.
who He did in His own image?" Like. So it's like, man, okay, you're bringing my faith to life. So that's good stuff. So,
Well,
so be
cool, man.
encouraged. I don't want you to go to New York, but at the same time, I want you to go to New York. I want what's best for you. But man,
Oh,
you know,
dude,
I
I'm not going to New York. You kidding me?
wait,
New York's done. As far, I mean, who knows when it's going to open up again? And I love New York. My family's from New York. I absolutely love New York City, but it's like I listen. I've got friends of mine that had to leave. I literally had friends that were on the show last week. They left. I mean, the whole thing is shut down, and they don't know when it's going to open up again. So it's
wow.
very sad. I don't know. Of course, it will bounce back, but man, I don't know exactly when or how. And quite honestly, yeah, it's just it, I have no idea. And I
Yeah,
wish I could be more optimistic about it because a lot of people are taking that route of optimism. Um, I don't know. It's just a gut feeling that it's going
yeah,
to take it's going to take longer than what the officials are saying for everything to kind of
yeah,
tweak back to normal. And even when it does, it's going to have a lasting effect on people's emotions, psychologically. Um,
yeah.
and a lot of
Well,
businesses are just not, they're not going to last.
Yeah. Well, maybe this will be an opportunity for you and I in the next coming months or so when things start settling out here in Cackalack that maybe you and I can get together, man. We've talked about getting together and doing music stuff for a while.
Sure.
And maybe I can finally come over and see that studio.
Yeah, man, come on over. For sure. We'll definitely figure something out with that.
That'd be a lot of fun.
The other and here's the other crazy thing real quick was like right after I got out of college, May of 2019, couldn't tell you why, but I put this business like into $7,000 of debt and got a bunch of analog gear, lights, $3,000 worth of HD cameras. I had no idea why, but literally that's what's sustaining my entire content and creative while I'm in quarantine, because literally this is an oasis right now. And I literally had, and I started building this podcast back in June of 2019. I had no idea that, the whole infrastructure was going to be there. And now with Zoom, all I did was just change the format. I had to sacrifice my multiple camera angles, whatever, big deal. But the studio, I mean, it's basically, besides having like a $250,000 Neve or SSL console, I've got everything that I need. It took 10 years to get there, but that last little bit, I would have never, it wasn't like somebody told me, oh, the world is going to be in this weird, distraught place in 2020. Go put your business in debt and go get a bunch of gear and like get rent. No, it was just like, I literally just was like, I'm going to go buy gear. Like I just graduated college. I'm going to go buy some gear and just be a little irresponsible. But it was just like the most responsible thing I could have done, but I never knew it. So again, it's like things like that, it really, it shows you the grace, like the grace.
Yeah. He redeems the broken.
For sure, man.
He makes beautiful things out of the dead thing.
Out of the stupid like me. But hey, man, listen, this has been great. Let me do this little shootout with you where I'll just say a industry related term for you and you just fire back the first word that comes to mind, or like the first couple of words that come to mind.
Oh no, this scares me.
Have you seen this? But we always do this at the end of the show. Have you ever seen this?
I don't know. I've always caught some of your podcasts, but I don't know if I've ever actually been able to get to the end of them because of being daddy and work and
some of them are long, so I don't hold it to you.
Well, let's just go for it.
You're gonna do fine, man.
Whatever you say, I'm gonna give you the first word that pops to mind.
It's a judgment-free zone.
All right, man. Let's do it.
Just know that your Christian colleagues will be probably seeing this at some point.
Yeah. All right. You got it. Let's do it.
No pressure, no legalism. All right. Acoustic guitar.
Oh man, honestly, that was Shane Bernard. I don't know why that came to mind.
That works.
Were you looking for a guitar?
No. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. It's literally just a thing.
Oh man, honestly, it was Shane. It was a string. It was Shane, Phil, and Gibson. So Shane Bernard, Phil Wickham, and Gibson guitars. That is what just came through.
Electric guitar.
Oh, Stratocaster.
Yeah, same for me. And I've asked this question like 60 times, and I'm on the same wavelength.
Stratocaster and Clapton.
Yeah. Vocal mic.
Sure.
There you go. Drums.
Oh man. DW. That's the only drum kit I know. That, and then I know Zildjian.
Okay. Well, those are top end. So there you go. Worship.
It's life.
That's good. Secular.
Bad.
That's your promo clip right there. That's great. You just walked into that one.
Oh my God.
That's great. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. But seriously, if you want to redeem yourself, you can.
No, yeah, I'll redeem myself, man. When people say secular, I'll say state of mind.
All right. Live.
Ooh. Honestly, I don't know why, but Bob Marley just came into my mind.
Wow. That's cool.
I don't know why. I think I would really enjoy. I think I would have enjoyed seeing him live. I think that I don't know. I dig some of his music. I get into his music a lot. I like his stuff. He was very creative and he pushed a lot of boundaries.
He did, and his record sounded great.
Yeah,
really sounded great. Studio.
Money. Wish.
Yeah. Song.
Right now is probably Refiner. That was a tune that was released with Stephanie Gretzinger and Chandler Moore with Maverick City Music and Tribal. Like you can look at it, just go look it up on YouTube. But it'd be that and probably King of Kings by Hillsong. Those are two that are really, I don't know. Those are really
jiving with you right now.
Yeah. Really jiving.
Silence.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Family.
Blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Faith.
I don't even know how to answer that. It was just straight blank, which I guess is what faith is. It's the assurance of things hoped for. So I was hoping for a word.
That's perfect. That is great.
That's what it was.
I got one more for you.
All right, hit me.
Pizza.
Ooh, man. I don't see you just. I'll say hand tossed. Yeah, let's go ahead and do hand tossed, and I won't leave. I'll leave the toppings up to you guys, but it's got to have that crust. Yeah, I'll leave the toppings to y'all.
I have one last question for you.
Okay.
The one I ask everybody, which is, if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell him?
What would I tell him?
Yeah, what would you tell him as advice or whatever?
Don't let fear deter. Like, don't let fear choose the next step.
Yeah.
You choose. You take the next step. Don't let fear. Because then you might not ever take it.
That's perfect. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Last words. Anything. This has been great, man.
Really, really honored that you had me on, man. I enjoy being able to sit down and talk to people. People will probably tell from this video, this recording and podcast that I love talking. I just love that relationship that gets built when you start learning about people and whatever. So I'm thankful, man, that you would even consider me to be a guest. And
come on, man. You kidding me?
No, seriously.
We always talk music like at the family gatherings and everything and dinners. And it was just like, people's schedules are crazy. I know yours is, I know mine is. And now not so much, even though my schedule is crazy.
You've had a number of these interviews scheduled, man.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm working harder now in quarantine than before. It's really weird, man. It's really, really weird.
Embrace the process.
Yeah.
Seriously. Embrace the process. God's stretching you, man. He's building some capacity in you that you haven't had before. And so just imagine what you're going to come out looking like on the other end. It's a lot of heat right now, a lot of blows, but man, that blade is going to be sharp on the other end of this. And so it's going to be good. But yeah, no, hopefully we can do this again, man, some other time. And, we can talk about all sorts of other stuff instead of just me, man.
Well, no. Yeah. Let's definitely, I've got another one coming up here in a couple of minutes that I have to shoot, but we'll definitely we need to talk for sure.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Tell mom and dad that I said hey.
I will.
And I love them, and hopefully we'll get to catch up at the next family get together.
Whenever that is.
Whenever that is.
You,
Jason Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Damico with New Blue Entertainment and the Jason Damico Show. Get you some.
Well, he said it right there, folks. Michael Pope, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys. Yes, this is the Jason Damico Show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Check out Mike's stuff in the description box below or to the sides, all of his content, all of his music, and great vibes, great discussion. We will see you guys on the next episode. And don't forget to subscribe to the channels. Peace.